next session, we're going to give away another bottle of champagne here. This is our Africa bucket. We have a stand set up outside in the lunch area. You can see it, an Africa bucket branded area. We want people to go there with their phones and make a short video telling your fans and friends on Facebook to go and donate to africabucket.com. I saw some people share it as a photo, but it's .com, africabucket.com. So you record your message out there in front of the banner. You can use our bucket as a prop. And tomorrow at lunchtime, the person who has the most likes on that video on their Facebook page that can show us the most likes will win not just another bottle of champagne, but they'll win 2 passes to next year's Eat Have 16 here in Cape Town. So good incentive to do that. So please, during the coffee breaks, let's get out there and shoot your own videos in front of the drop, and you can win the bottle of champagne and those 2 free passes. So moving right along. We've talked a lot about content today, about the aggregation of content, and the need to curate content. And the best source of user-generated content being those reviews and recommendations and feedback from clients. So we're going to hear now from Alana Wick from Revenate. She's the director for Revenate for Africa and Middle East. Revenate is a company that specializes in the aggregation of user reviews and feedback. So how do you aggregate and gather that content together more effectively to manage your business? She's going to be looking specifically at mobile. And how mobile can be used to achieve that. So she's here with us from Dubai today, so please welcome from Revenate, Alana Wick.
Is it going? Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for having us. This is our first time at the eTourism Africa Summit. We're really excited. Revenate, we're based in Silicon Valley in the States, but we just opened up our Middle East and Africa office about a year ago. And we're seeing just a ton of opportunity, especially, there's a lot of the stats that Helena showed us this morning. Your tourism industry here is just absolutely booming. And with that comes, as we've been mentioning all morning, this plethora of guest content that's being shouted out across hundreds of different social media sites, dozens of different OTAs. And I understand, looking at all of the amazing opportunities of what we could be doing across all of these different channels that we've been inspired with this morning sounds amazing. But as the operations and the GMs and the directors of sales and marketing on the ground, it can be a pretty terrifying stunt when you actually get back to your desk and realize how many channels there are to manage and how are you prolific and fantastic at all of those. So what I'm going to do today is share a little bit with you based on some of the knowledge, some of the best industry insights and practices that we've learned working with some of the world's best hospitality brands, everything from the big brands and management groups down to independent and specialty boutique accommodations. So just a little bit, for those of you who aren't familiar with Revenate, we are a software as a service company that's based in the States, global offices worldwide. And what we do, our mission is really simple. We don't actually talk to your guests. We just want to enable you as hoteliers, you as tourism industry professionals, to better connect with your guests. And the way we do that is by delivering disruptive technologies to help make your days a little bit more streamlined, so you can focus on those actual revenue-generating activities, like engaging with the guests or benchmarking against competition, and really building processes around managing the best online reputation that you can have. So today, agenda is going to be pretty simple, and luckily, the first part that I was going to cover, which is kind of the mobile landscape and how it's changed hospitality. I think we've beaten that pretty good this morning, so that'll give us some more time this afternoon, or more time in the rest of the presentation to focus on now what can we do in order to leverage all of this amazing guest content that's being submitted, as Helena mentioned, really in real time while the guests are on your properties and experiencing the fantastic offerings that you're giving them. And then kind of identifying, who is this mobile traveler? How are they going through their guest experience pre, during, and post-stay? And then, what are the opportunities around that? How can we leverage all of this information to really better our brand and turn our happy guests, our promoters, into our own army of marketeers? So the mobile world, as we said, obviously, I think we've beaten the dead horse. It's absolutely exploding. It's something we can no longer ignore. And in fact, this year, the number of cell phones globally is reached 7.3 billion. So for the first time ever, there's going to be more mobiles than the people who inhabit the world. And interestingly, enough, while mobile adoption is going to slow worldwide, just because we've already reached, that critical mass, Africa and the Middle East are the two regions that are still really driving the mobile explosion. And in fact, here in Africa, of all of the telephone lines, does anybody have an idea what percentage mobile makes up? 90% of all telephone lines in Africa. The awesome part about this is you, as the travel industry, are getting the lion's share. This is from Adobe's Best of Benchmark study, and the travel industry has the highest percentage of internet traffic coming to tablets at 11.2%. This study looked at traffic coming from mobile to websites across tons of different industries, and luckily for you guys, the biggest industry that's receiving this traffic is the travel industry. And interestingly, it's the only industry that's getting more traffic from tablets than smartphones. Okay, so mobile equals travel. We've realized that. And what all of this content is providing for travelers who are making their booking decisions is not only that booking decision, but they're using it to plan their entire destination experiences. And what's really interesting is to start looking at who these travelers are. While there are those who go into the amazing analysis paralysis of looking at 30+ reviews to try and decide where they're going on their honeymoon or on their first African safari, a lot of these mobile travelers are on the road near the destination when they're making their bookings. 24% of people who make mobile bookings are within 10 miles of their destination. 60% of the people who are making those mobile bookings are at their hotel stay within 24 hours of that booking. And most of the stays are just for one night, and the bookings start at about 5 p.m. So this new breed of travelers prefers online communication more than any, unfortunately, in-person communication when they're actually on these properties. They use social networks or online review sites to find out rather than stopping at the concierge desk. I was meeting with a couple of our hotels, and we were having our meeting in the lobby, and right next to us was the guest relations desk. My meeting took about 90 minutes. I was there, and out of my peripheral vision, Google Glass, but I was noticing during 90 minutes, not one guest walked up to the guest relations desk, which is really staggering. The fact that we've got one or two folks on our team sitting behind it, and the mobile traveler is just preferring all of these online channels to get the information that they're looking for. And tablet ownership. This is really interesting. I think a lot of times mobile gets sidelined. It's just the young folks who are on it constantly. And interestingly, for tablet ownership, this trend is that tablet ownership peaks among 35 to 44-year-olds in the UK and France. And in Germany, it's from 45 to 50-year-olds. And there are a few likely drivers of this trend. Firstly, tablets are expensive. Millennials have usually exhausted their cash flow on the mobiles and PCs, which are their first primary concern. And then also for this older mobile traveler, mobiles can have some issues in terms of the screen being too small. They don't feel like they can see the property photos or the experiences as well. And the tablet mimics more of a PC experience where they can have multiple different tabs open with larger screens and even keyboard attachments. So the mobile traveler. Now all of these travelers are expecting a totally seamless experience throughout their entire journey. As we were hearing this morning, I can check into my SAA flight with my boarding pass. I can, as soon as I leave the conference this evening, I'll request my Uber to get back to the hotel. And once I'm in the hotel, ironically, if I wanted to order a pizza, I'd be able to do that straight from my mobile, but why can't I order room service in the majority of hotels straight from my mobile? It seems a little ironic. And I was sitting with our clients yesterday, and we were talking about how the traveler today has become really egotistical. And I don't mean that in a negative way. But 5 years ago, if I stayed at your property and I had an experience, good, bad, or ugly, if I wanted to tell you about it, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call you. And somebody's sitting behind the reception desk, and they have to answer it, usually probably about 2 or 3 rings. And you're going to listen to me rambling on about whatever it is I have to say. Say, thanks so much for your feedback. Tell me what you're going to do. And today, that mobile traveler, when they go to Twitter and they go to Facebook and they go to TripAdvisor, Orbitz, or Expedia, or Booking.com, and they leave those reviews, if you don't have a management response there, it's like that phone is ringing and nobody's picking up. And as we heard from the stats this morning, while you guys have an immense amount, an incredible volume of reviews and content out there for the South African market in general, we're only actually engaging with, it says about 6% of the hotels are doing those management responses. So there's a huge opportunity to really open that, that guest traveler engagement. And hoteliers really need to examine the way they can leverage mobile technologies to reach their guests. And why is it important? As we all know, hospitality is an incredibly tactile experience. It's not a one-time transaction. And as we heard, I think in our opening presentation this morning, let's look at how we can start to get more revenue from the travelers we do have, rather than just trying to get heads on beds. And one of the ways you can do that is making these more meaningful guest engagement relationships over mobile, and that's how we can do a lot more incremental revenue generation while the guest is still on property. Perfect. So how can hotels leverage mobile? What's the big answer here? Based on a lot of our clients and some of the best practices we've seen, I've identified 4 areas where hotels can really use mobile technology to deepen the guest relationship that they do have and to drive revenue. So the first is mobile services. Nowadays, most of the larger brands are really having forward-thinking approaches as to how their guests are experiencing their brand before they've ever stepped foot on property. One of the most popular mobile experiences is pre-arrival check-in, and it's been proven over and over again that delays at check-in is the #1 way to harm your reputation. Even as a 5-star property, it's the #1 way to disappoint guests. And it's been proven to be the easiest way to get somebody to start their stay off on the right foot. So with a mobile app or what mobile web experience, I think that Helena made a great point. We do see, unfortunately, a significant down people who download an app and then only log into it once every 6 months. So when I say mobile app, I kind of mean it interchangeably with just having a mobile-friendly web experience. So with a pre-arrival check-in mobile experience, that guests can give you, any pertinent information, their flights landed early, can we have early check-in or bits and bobs they might need in the room. And with you having all of that information at your fingertips, by the time the guest has come across that threshold, you're able, you've got everything there in front of you. You're able to have this seamless entry and welcome experience and really surprise and delight your guests. And some mobile apps also provide engagement between the hotel and the guest directly in terms of guest requests. So the Four Seasons in Philadelphia and a couple of the Lowe's properties in Miami and Nashville are piloting the SMS exchange platform called Zingle, where basically every one of the guest email IDs in their PMS system, and the moment they message the hotel, they set up an entire service recovery profile for that guest. And so it's a 2-way communication, and this is one way that we can start to more, get that concierge back into the picture, leverage his ability, leverage all of, her amazing insights on where to go and what to do. But instead of me having to walk down to the desk, that thing that we pick up 110 times a day, I can ask the questions right there. And so now you start to gain that trust and that loyalty from your guests again, and start that more meaningful engagement. Some of the other basic mobile services that you can offer on your website, pretty self-explanatory with what we can see up here. So a splash screen, if there's any cool, experience that you're offering right now, or a menu item that you want to highlight. And a lot of times you can attach this to your Wi-Fi login. So we heard this morning how absolutely critical it is to be offering your guests Wi-Fi, because that's enabling an entire new marketing department that you don't have within your organization. And one way that you know that they're going to do whatever you want to get that Wi-Fi. So attach your splash screen on there, what you want to upsell that day. Also, hotel contact information. This sounds so pedantic and so basic, but the number one thing that your guests are looking for, or potential guests, is your address and your appropriate location on Google Maps. True story. As our awesome moderator mentioned, I'm based in Dubai, which is notorious for having horrendous GPS. We're constantly having a new tower built, and there's not actually a road that goes up to that tower. So Google Maps sometimes can be a bit of a mess because hoteliers aren't putting the appropriate location of their hotel. So I had a meeting with a prospect, and gave me, obviously I just had the name of the hotel. I popped into my Google Maps, got in my car, showed up, went to the hotel, looked at above the door, and it wasn't even the right hotel. And they're 10 kilometers down the road. And what if thank God I was just there to try and help them sort out the situation. But what if I was a potential booker? That's a room night and any incremental revenue that could have gone along with that. So tablets, as we've mentioned, this is something that especially for our travelers that have a higher discretionary income, our older travelers, this is something that we're starting to see hotels leverage a whole lot more on premise. So whether that's controlling the AC, or opening the blinds, or upselling F&B or spa or golf experiences, what this can also do is really help with on-premise service recovery. So of course it's a fact of nature. We're in hospitality. There are going to be negative reviews out there about our hotel. But what if we could preempt them before they ever happen? Unfortunately, sometimes with guest reviews and post-stay surveys, it's too little too late. The guest has already left. They've already gone screaming and shouting to TripAdvisor and about their experience. And so a lot of our properties are now starting to use tablets to collect real-time, instantaneous feedback. And these can be linked with real-time alerts. So for example, the moment somebody has had a slow check-in experience and they've given you, a net promoter score of 6 out of 10, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to a friend, your front of house or your GM can get pinged straight away saying, Alana in room 305 didn't have a great experience. And imagine then you being able to turn around my stay, maybe turn me into a promoter before I've ever left your property. So guest communications. We have, the mobile is an amazing way to, as I said, reopen that conversation between you and the hotel. The one caveat with that is we have to make sure that we're doing it really, really targeted. And every bit of guest data that we have, whether it's, that they ordered, and this amount of money on spot and not on F&B last time they came, well then let me not send you a promotion for what you didn't use. Let me cater this a little bit more to you, because the travelers don't have time to be inundated with spam messages. So it's really important when we're catering this conversation to our guests on mobile to make sure that it's very targeted to what stage they are within the 5 stages of travel. So in the dreaming stage, as we heard, video is an incredibly powerful way to captivate our guests. 50% of travelers are reviewing video content, travel-related video content. Researching. The average guest is selecting between about 7 different properties before making the booking in your hotel, with some crazy folks, myself included, looking upwards of 30 different spots in that analysis paralysis. And so how can you really make sure that you're standing out amongst them? And that's with a totally stellar online reputation and a really proactive management response to that. During the booking, we could do an entire session totally on that, but at the long and the short of it, make sure your mobile web experience has an easy booking access. It's shown that hotels that have fresh, recent guest content on their websites send 36% less traffic to unprofitable OTAs. Because let's go through, anecdotally a guest booking experience. 93% of travelers worldwide say that online reviews have a material impact on their booking decisions. So if I go to your lodge, I type in your specific website, I get there, you've already got me on your website. First thing I'm looking for are guest reviews. If you either don't have them or they're not super fresh, what do? I scoot over to booking.com, Expedia, because I want to see what the guy who stayed last week said. And now on the OTA, hopefully I still book you. But even if I do, you've lost that chunk of revenue because I booked them and I was already on your site. Alternatively, I see the guy down the street and I book his place instead. So the number one thing you can do to really drive direct bookings and make your mobile website and your regular website more sticky is having those fresh, recent guest reviews. Now, lastly, experiencing. So while the guest is on property, having that mobile engagement where, the moment they come in, you can let them know about your new tapas special that you're having that evening, or as a guest getting an alert on mobile, you get 20% off at the spa. So really start engaging them and try and make more money from less travelers. And then lastly, and most importantly, the sharing phase. I think Helena brought up a great point this morning where we were finding out that so much of the content that's being put out there, whether it's on TripAdvisor or Facebook or Twitter, is actually happening not after the travel, after they've made their perfectly glossy album on Facebook, but while they're there. And the moment that you can start to capitalize that and interact with them in that real time is how we can really start to leverage that content that's out there. Okay. So why, I think, we all know that there's some kind of correlation between having a good reputation and revenue. But really interestingly, the University of Cornell, one of the world's leading hospitality universities, did an amazing report at the end of last year, and it finally identified the direct correlation between online reputation and revenue. And what it shows is that for every 1 point increase that you can have in your hotel's rating equates to being able to charge 11.2% more without losing any occupancy. And while, of course, it's unrealistic that maybe you would jump from a 3.5 to a 4.5, but this works incrementally as well. So if you're at a 3.5, by really starting to pay attention to the content, the constructive criticism that is in these guest reviews, and really honing our operations, we can actually drive revenue by just incrementally moving that needle. As I mentioned here, the ROI on integrating revenues on your website, you'll send a significant amount of traffic less to OTAs, and on-site reviews just give customers more confidence when booking. And especially by doing that management response, that's how we can start to retain those guests who have actually taken the time to write that review, whether it was positive, neutral, or negative. But I also understand, when we're talking about the mobile traveler and everything that they're doing, what about the mobile hotel? You're busy, doing what you do best, which is actually being there at the property, around with your guests, engaging with them while they're there. How can you be managing this myriad of different channels? And there's a mobile approach to reputation management as well. So while you might not have the luxury of sitting behind your computer every day, you can get pinged with real-time alerts from all of those different channels, actually respond to the guests straight there, find out what sentiment topics are trending most positively or negatively, and even benchmark yourself against the competition and have a bit of competitive insight there. And beyond looking to move that rating needle and that revenue needle, monitoring social media for feedback can allow you to do a whole lot more than just that. So real-time service recovery, as I said, the opportunity to surprise and delight, and then sales opportunities with prospecting. So this is a real-world example. The Four Seasons in Palo Alto. Guy on Twitter gets on there, unfortunately has a bad experience. You can read about it there. Within minutes, Four Seasons responded, not combatively, apologized obviously for happening, was almost a bit sheepish, and just said, really matter-of-factly, I hope we can make it up to you today. I'm leaving on a cliffhanger here. He checks in, amazing experience, good service recovery while it's happening, and if we look at this, our guy here has over 17,000 followers. So what we did is took a potential PR nightmare, somebody who's talking to thousands of people out there, and turned it into a total positive. There's a guy named Chipper Jones, legendary third baseman of the Atlanta Braves in the States. He was up in New York when they were playing the Yankees, and they were set up in their property, and I don't know what was wrong with the hotel, but unfortunately checked into his room. His TV wasn't working, something else. And so Chipper Jones with his back on his Twitter account, the marvel of modern technology, the Park Hyatt is amazing, service is really at the core of what they do. Mm-hmm. So again, turning around these potential PR nightmares and really starting to leverage them. We have a surprise and delight. So I don't know if any of you all saw this. It went quite viral, as we'll see, but that boring booking engine that or the booking page we always see, let us know if there's anything else we need to know about your stay. And so this little cheeky bugger says, please place a framed picture of Alfonso Ribeiro on the nightstand. Thank you. Not an extra towel, not an ironing board, but a picture of Alfonso Ribeiro. Sure enough, he checks in. Nice framed portrait there. This is why I love the Hampton Inn. 308,000 views. Not out of anybody's marketing budget. I guess maybe in a sense to print out the portrait, but that's about it. The sales opportunities around media. This is my first time to Cape Town. Been here for about 36 hours and already totally in love with it. But what's the first thing I do when I book my ticket? Go onto Twitter. I'm headed to Cape Town. Where should I stay? What should I do? Where do I have to eat? Which wine do I have to drink? That's going to prove significantly challenging. And so these people, they're out there and they're talking to you, and the data around those folks is out there as well. We can see their clout scores. Emmy up there with a 62. She's obviously got a significant number of followers. That's somebody I totally want to get to my property. And when they are on property, if they're checking in on Foursquare or in Facebook, those are the people that I want to surprise and delight. And the information is out there to let you know which of these conversations do I need to be engaged in. So, from a hotel operations perspective, while I think social media has historically really sat in that marketing side, it's one of the critical components of your business that impacts so many of your different business units. And from an operations perspective, while I think it maybe took GM a bit longer to get actively and proactively involved in that, what we're finding is that it actually brings you back one step closer to your natural behavior. Because once you've streamlined this process, once you're actually starting to identify the specific sentiment topics that are coming up most often in all of your online reviews, then you can focus your attention on actually honing those operational improvements. This is something that Helena mentioned this morning. Only 6% of you guys are doing management responses to your guests, and this is a huge opportunity that we have. And there are real numbers here around how this impacts the mentality and potential booking of these travelers. So you can see those first two. The third, I think, is really interesting to look at. And while this study wasn't done in hospitality, what we do have is for the retail industry. Thousands, millions of reviews about iPhones and cameras and this, that, and the other. And what they found is that for leaving a review on directly, 33% of people, unprompted, if it was a negative review, remove that review. You're never going to get it moved off TripAdvisor, but maybe you can do something to make that guest do. What is all of this data that's sitting across all of these 1,000 sites? How can we ultimately, what is the holy grail of all of this information? And that's getting to a rich guest profile. All that data is sitting out there, but it's in silos. Your team, your concierge, your front of house is writing down all of the in-person feedback that you're getting. You've got post-stay surveys that you might be sending out and keeping privately to assess performance trends. And then you've got all of the online reviews. There's this immense amount of data. And once you can start to pull this together, and I think Sonal was kind of alluding to this in the last presentation about these CRMs. We haven't seen any that have worked particularly brilliantly for the hospitality industry because of the immense data integration issues. But once you can get that, all of that data in one place, the stay could be something like this. Welcome back, Michelle Wall. We're so excited you're here for the 12th time. I see that you used our spa the last 2 times, so we tentatively booked you in at 5 p.m. in case you wanted to do that. I mean, if I showed up like that, I think that's the way you really start making a reputation that's sticky. So, in a nutshell, I think that's what we can give you a bit of insight today about guest satisfaction, how to start to leverage that with mobile. And I'd be happy to take any questions. Maybe got 2 minutes. If anybody has any particular questions, otherwise I'll be around for the rest of the summit and in Johannesburg as well.
One question here. I have a question about clout scores.
Yes.
Where do you, because American Airlines ran the Admiral's Club promo and they did anything above 55.
Yes, exactly.
Where do you hit your level of, say, an influencer which is now to be mildly seen, and then an influencer that is definitely has to be engaged?
Totally.
And what is the absolute difference? Is it 55, 60, 62, 78?
Good question. So the average clout score for the average social media user is around a 40. So that's your average Joe walking down the street. I mean, it depends on your property, the level, how big is your marketing team, how many people can respond. From a personal recommendation, most of my hotels, anything above a 50, they're starting to get engaged with. Somebody, obviously, Chipper Jones style, you totally want to be surprising and delighting them, because that's the easiest, cheapest marketing that you could possibly get. But then, it doesn't. Also, if you're a small game lodge, maybe you're not going to have those giant influencers. And so, if you've got the time, engage with those 40s on cloud. Everybody, we always talk about ultra high net worth individuals and their travel experience that they're booking, but especially for the international traveler that's coming to South Africa. I mean, a lot of times these are their first trips here, and these are that one African safari trip they dreamed of for their entire life, and on that one trip, they're going to be the ultra high net worth individual, even though they might not be in the rest of their usual existence.
I have, just as a follow-on from that, do you do anything with a cred score? Do you recommend cred? Do you give cred any credence?
So within our dashboard, we only pull in clout.
Okay.
So online reviews, revenue's been really nice, since that's where hotels are seeing the actual correlation with revenue. So while we do have the social media component, it's not at the core of what we do. Our biggest focus is to help hotels directly address all of the guest reviews, since that's what's impacting their bottom line. But it's again, if you've got a limitless marketing team with time, I think you can leverage any of those.
My question is from the other side, because I'm not a tour operator. I'm just an individual. So
right.
I just have sites around, and my cred is on 993 and my clout is on 67. But I've not had anybody in this country say anything or engage at all. And I get a blank look when I give that step.
Totally.
What?
Totally. And I think, and it's just a matter of, it's an education process for sure. It's a total education process. And a lot of people, and no shame in it, but a lot of people haven't even heard of a clout score. And I'm sorry, in case nobody knows what that is, or anybody doesn't know what that is. Basically, it measures your kind of social influence. So it'll look at all of your activity on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, how many likes and retweets, basically how loud you are, how influential you are. And so, a 67 on clout, if this guy stays, I think that's what we're getting.
Great, thank you, Alana. Thank you very much. A big round of applause for Alana. So staying in the same realm of gathering content and aggregating content, we talked about reviews and how important they are, but the other travelers as they travel, such as travel blogs, photos, content. And how can that relate to booking of travel and buying travel? So I have with us here today from the States, Spencer Spellman. He's Expedia's editor-in-chief of social content, blogs, travel content. He'll talk to you about how he gathers that kind of content, how it's produced, where it comes from, and how it relates to booking and sale of travel. But from the US and Expedia, please welcome editor-in-chief Spencer Spellman.
Thank you, Daniel. Hey, y'all. I am indeed not from here. I'm from the South. My accent are immediately figure out that I'm not from Southern California, which is where I've been the last year. Thank you, Damien and William, for inviting me to be here. Incredibly honored and excited to be here. South Africa is a little place for me because 10 years ago, I was in South Africa for the first time, spent the summer here, and it really kind of broadened my view of travel and got me interested in this. And it's took me a few years to. Damien mentioned I work with these. I'm actually a consulting contractor for them. Chief of these and started out in travel as a writer, writing for sites, and then it's kind of morphed into doing content strategy, working with companies with branding, and so on. So that's a little bit of background on kind of what I do, but we are here to talk about you guys and talk about travel. And today I am talking about selling travel in a changing climate. But we're not selling. We're not selling paper. We're not selling, I'm going to use the S word here. Travel is inherently sexy. It's fun. It's what people aspire to do. We're not selling something that we have to make look good. We're selling something that is inherently sexy, such as this and that. Real quick, I know we might be kind of lulling a little bit after lunch, so why don't we all stand up, take a little stretch break. So everybody stand up on your feet really quick. Give it a laptop and it's hard to stand up or whatnot, I understand. All good, you guys stand out there, I'll pretend you're standing. Stretch a bit for a moment if you want. Let's say this represents travelers. This represents the people that are traveling. Now this side here, you go ahead and sit down. So if you are a hotel, an activity partner, a DMO, this represents the people who are posting photos on social networks about your destination, your hotel, your property. Everybody can go ahead and sit down now. Thank you. Of course, I know this is the first time you guys have gotten these statistics today. As such, I'll give you some more. 3 out of every 4 people post photos to social networking sites, like I just mentioned. I did a quick search last night, completely random. Just want to see what Cape Town hotels were using Twitter and social media and whatnot, and came across 8 different hotels. Just again, a random search. Of those 8 hotels, 5 of them were not even on Twitter. Of the 3 that were, one of them had only tweeted 3 times in the last since the beginning of the year. Little stat: 90% of consumers say they trust earned media such as social media, word of mouth, and recommendations from friends. And then, kind of similarly along those lines, 80% of consumers trust the company more if they're on social media. So I feel like there's a real missed opportunity if you're, and I'm not saying that if you have to be on Twitter. I think one of the important things, and something that I hope to get across today, that it really depends on your audience. Who are you talking to? Where's your audience spending time with? If it's an older demographic, then you might be more beneficial to be spending all your time on Facebook rather than a Twitter, Instagram, or like. And then lastly, what I will get into a little bit more, 1 out of every 4 travelers read travel blog content to plan trips. And here I'll just kind of put this up really quickly. These are just some tweetable things that I kind of came up with. Some of this based on the stats that I just shared, and some of this a little bit more. So if there's some tidbits in there you want to tweet out, I'll leave that up there for a moment before moving on. And I'll have this also at the end as well. The problem, kind of as I mentioned, I kind of oversee the content for Expedia, and what I kind of really want to kind of talk about right now briefly is kind of talk about kind of the content that we've done with Expedia and how that has worked for us, what we've learned from it. But I realized too that a lot of you guys are, if you're here with a hotel, a tour operator, DMO, you don't have the same kind of budget that an Expedia has. And so I hope to kind of have some takeaways for you guys as well, some things that you can learn and take away from this. And if I talk as fast as I usually do, then I might even be done a little bit later. And of course, we have to answer your questions because digital content, but I've worked with smaller tour operators and travel brands, and I'm happy to kind of talk through some of the things I've learned there. The work that I've done with Expedia, what I approached Expedia with was a problem that I saw where you're flipping through a magazine, you're watching the travel channel, you're looking at a travel TV show, you're looking through the newspaper, and you're inspired to travel, and something kind of a light winks off that you want to go on a safari in South Africa, you want to visit Cape Town, which is one of the #1 destinations in the world. But then the heavy lifting is kind of left up to you. You have to do most of the work for it. So the solution was to really tap into the influencers of the online travel community, what we kind of call at Expedia the Travelati. There's a few folks here. I will mention Cash really briefly, who is a great resource, who has done some blogger initiatives here in South Africa. So if you have a chance to talk with Cash, do talk to him, and he'll be on a panel tomorrow as well. And so kind of what our goal is kind of to reach into the Travelati, the really influential people in travel, because I saw that there was the travel company that is selling the product, and the traveler the travel company is the means to traveling, doing what they want to do. And what I saw was that bloggers and the influencers in the travel community were really the bridge, or really what bridged the gap between. And so the first idea that was originally just going to be a 2-week project. It was a tour chat. We really talked about some emerging, futuristic type of trends and technology today. This isn't something that is that futuristic. It's something that we've been doing for a while now, but it's really kind of responding to business needs. What we did is we started Twitter chat. Originally, it was just going to be 2 weeks around some product that Expedia was doing, and the goal was to kind of just travel and connecting with people who are online in the travel industry. Because really, there wasn't a real kind of concrete engagement there, and kind of, as I showed you earlier, nearly over 80% of people trust a brand that's more active and engaged online. And so what we did is we wanted to create an environment where people could use social media in a similar way to plan a trip that they would be using a travel magazine or travel guidebooks, but which often takes months and months of research. They would get the information. So each week the goal was to have a different topic around a destination, a type of travel like cruise travel. We've recently done and to kind of talk about that for 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes, and we have different travel influencers, some with followings of over 100,000. We have others that have more small and niche audiences, and so they kind of really serve as the experts during that time. And then again, we have our experts that are giving information, and then participants who are on Twitter can follow the hashtag Expedia Chat and get answers to the questions they have. And so here you see kind of some examples of people who weren't even tweeting at during the chat, but who kind of use that information to book a trip. You have a couple of different examples there, and then here also shows some different brands. Yesterday, the last tweet up here on the right-hand corner was actually from the Twitter chat yesterday, which wasn't even on Africa. It was a chat on adventure travel, and I did a search this morning, and there were about 20 different mentions of Africa during the chat. And really kind of, I think what this really shows us is the power of just these simple ways to kind of talk about a destination and to reach out to people who are already tweeting about your destination and talking about your destination. I just, an hour ago, tweeted, hey, I'm in Cape Town, use the hashtag Cape Town, and what are your recommendations of what I must do the next 48 hours? About 15 minutes ago, I had not gotten any responses yet, so I'm hoping that some more responses come in. But again, it's kind of going back to that real-time information and people wanting to feel connected to a brand and being able to easily input yourself. That's not, you don't have to have a big budget to do that. If somebody is tweeting about your destination, asking a question, that's an immediate chance for you to get in there and respond. And that's going back to some of those things that Alana was just talking about. Here's a little bit of information on some of the kind of some of our successes. The Twitter chat that we do is every Wednesday for an hour and a half, and the numbers you see here at the top are actually from a report that Simply Measured did a few weeks ago, and it was 4 lessons that brands can learn from Expedia Chat, and they shared some of our statistics from our chats. As you'll see, the impressions, reach, engagement, unique people, that's all over the course of 2 weeks. So just kind of keep that in mind. Typically our impressions from the Twitter chats are between about 1.5 million and 2.5 million, and then impressions are anywhere between about 25 million and 30 to 35 million. And then you'll see, I will point out South Africa, one of our top users in regards to Cloud Score, and you can see some of the other brands and people that have followed along and participated in the chat. So again, I think really that was really the first thing that we did with Expedia was kind of tapping into Twitter. So many people, as we kind of talked about earlier, are using Twitter to plan their travels, asking questions from experts. And it's a great opportunity to, if you're a brand, if you're a hotel, if you're a tour operator, reach out to people who are already talking about your company online. Next, Expedia Viewfinder. So this is the blog that we created, that I oversee. We created this, essentially structured it similar to an e-magazine. It was the solution to the problem that I saw, which was travel companies inspiring, and there being inspirational content out there, but it being hard to book that, to make that happen. So we created this Expedia Viewfinder blog. We worked with 12 bloggers who are producing content every month. And the idea is to have content that inspires, but then also have that content being somewhere where they can also book. So here you'll see in this blog post up here, we've got in the left-hand corner for each blog post that's on a destination, the reader gets delivered a handful of deals on that destination, and then within the post also you can click through to the hotels page on the website. So within as little as 2 clicks, sometimes 1 or 2 or a few more, you can be booking a trip. So the idea there again is having a source where people can both be inspired and then book a trip all in one place. And again, this is where I kind of hope to talk a little bit about giving you guys some pointers who may not have a budget as big as Expedia. First off, incentivize your customers. For the Twitter chat each week, we always give away at least a $500 voucher for people to use on Expedia.com. Sometimes we'll have a hotel giveaway, sometimes we'll have a handful of hotel giveaways. Well, the idea there is that you would be giving people a reason to incentivize them, just kind of giving them a reason to feel the connection to Expedia. And that comes in different ways. And the cost there is so low. If you're a hotel, maybe you see somebody tweeting about that they're coming to your hotel in a couple weeks for their anniversary. Tweets a photo that day that says, "Hey, it's me and my wife's anniversary. Here's a photo from us at dinner last night before we leave to go home tomorrow." Send them up a bottle of wine. Make them a cake. It's a low cost to you. Will they come back? Who knows? They're going to be more likely to, for sure. And so I think it's really small touches like that, because I think one thing that I've heard a lot today is that travelers really want a genuine experience. They want something authentic, something real, and so it's really so important in a social and digital age that is often so oversaturated to be able to stand out in some way. Secondly, incentivize influencers, bloggers. We at Expedia compensate our bloggers, and we give them travel budget as well. And so we want their work to be valued. And so if you're working with bloggers or influencers online, whether they're local people or travelers, make them feel valued, because a lot of them, myself included, are doing this full time. It's a job, so we want ultimately to be valued. And so think about ways to really the people who one of my own tourism boards in LA is working a lot with local bloggers and getting them access to things that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. And so I think working with locals is a great opportunity as well. Third, social media is social. It's only as strong as the online, offline relationships that result from it. Again, kind of going back to really getting in there, engaging. I mentioned some of the Cape Town hotels that I looked up to see how active they were on social, and seeing that there were several that weren't even on Twitter. A good example, on the other hand, though, was I looked at the One and Only, who here in Cape Town, and they were posting photos of people that had recently stayed there or were staying there currently, and so I think that really, again, kind of boosts the value, and it makes people kind of feel wanted, and it makes them kind of really kind of boost them up if you're sharing their content and engaging them. Fourth, start small and then test and learn. We, as I mentioned, all of the social content and the blog content that we're doing at Expedia has been a result of really starting with the Twitter chat and saying, hey, let's just start with this. We have these few bloggers. We have this much time, this much budget. Let's start with this, see how it works, and it's just been kind of continuing to build off that. And so you don't have to start a blog. You might not have the budget to do that, but additionally, our bloggers at Expedia are doing content and blogs for their own websites. And so there's opportunities to do things with the budget you have. And so start small and then test and learn and see what's working, what's not working. Lastly, it's not about the big numbers, but the right numbers. Here are two different tweets. The first one at the top comes from these two tweets. One of them comes from a blogger with less than 10,000 followers. Another one comes from a blogger with over 100,000 followers. And you would think that you see one has 9 retweets, 9 shares, and the other one does not. You would think, naturally, with the 100,000 followers, it's actually the reverse. That's from the person that had less than 10,000 followers. And so that kind of really talks to my point of it not being just about big numbers, but really the quality of the numbers. We at Expedia have some bloggers that we work with that have well over 50,000 followers and raters, and then we have others that might have a few thousand. And for us, it's more about not just reaching their audience, but their audience's audience. We have some that are moms who are very influential in the family blogging community, and so it's really kind of reaching their audience and kind of thinking beyond just numbers. Lastly, Damien mentioned we talked about doing. We talked a little bit about the future of travel, and so just kind of want to talk really briefly about where we see content especially going. I know, again, this isn't the first time you've heard about mobile today. That's been an ongoing trend. Our content on the Expedia Viewfinder blog is just about every month we're seeing about 60% of the traffic come from mobile devices. And then we're seeing that on Expedia.com as well. It continues to grow and grow. About at least 20% of bookings every month on Expedia coming from mobile devices. Multimedia, really, I think video is still, in a lot of ways, and we're still kind of figuring that out. It's a little bit challenging and hard to kind of go viral in the video space, but people are so eager to learn that. But you look at what's trending, what kind of posts really get a lot of eyes on it, and it's high multimedia posts. It's from BuzzFeed that often are much more photos than it are text. So I think that's so I think that's where multimedia is kind of is where it's at. Multiple devices. We talked about wearable devices as well today. That's something that we're kind of see and continue to do with Expedia. Last month, their app was featured, one of the first apps to be featured on the Samsung Gear 2. And so I think that's going to be a kind of a growing trend in travel, as we've already mentioned today, wearable devices. In the summer, quite a few follow-up articles that really talk about how travel. And so I think the younger get a much greater rate than any other demographic, and authentic experiences, it's technology, it's things like free Wi-Fi that millennials really want, and so I'll continue to be the case. And so really encourage you to watch the habits of your younger travelers, because they really, I think, influence the travel industry the most. And that is all I have. I don't know if we have a couple minutes for questions, or want to do that during the...
Yeah, well firstly, thank you, Spencer, for that. We're going to have a panel discussion. Please take a seat.
Okay.
And if Billy would like to join us, Sanal, Elena, and Brad. Now, folks. We'll get some extra mics coming down, isn't it? You're already mic'd, aren't you? You, Helena? Thanks. That's been a really informative process, I think, we've been through in terms of moving through the social platforms and the ways that businesses are using those platforms in particular. So what we want to do now is just have a chat with all of the speakers while we've got them here. I'm going to ask a couple of questions initially, and then I'm going to open it up to you guys if you have any questions you'd like to ask a particular speaker. But just a couple of questions I'd like to start with, that I think are questions that I hear a lot from working with the industry here and working with the trade, and a very common question that I hear being asked. And it's a very simple one, if we can hear from each of you. If you're a small to medium business here in South Africa, and you have a limited marketing budget, let's say $1,000 or less a month that you contribute to marketing, that you attribute to your marketing costs every month. What would be the one thing you recommend that they would do, or how would they best spend that kind of level of money in terms of effectively marketing themselves?
Feels like a race for the media owners. Spend with me, spend with me.
Would you like to kick that off then with your CPC or TVN?
Yeah. It does feel like the salesman coming out.
You have a cardboard box.
So it's a difficult thing to not sound as though I'm pitching Google, but I think if you but I'm going to go ahead and so if you look at a marketing funnel, a traditional marketing funnel, and how you're going to engage with an audience, you start off with awareness. And awareness is kind of getting out there and saying to everybody, hey, we're out here, we've got this great brand, we've got this great product, and generally, at that stage, it's a very shallow relationship that you have with the brand between the consumer. And the guys who really operate in that space are your Unilevers and your big brands who have a lot of money to spend to get in front of the audience with massive reach and frequency. And you kind of work down this relationship pipeline to the point where you get to engaging with the consumer, whether it's an on-the-ground activation with social media, and then you get all the way down. And if you've done a really good job at each of these layers, you get to the point where it's intent. The point of intent where I've done my, what we call zero moment of truth. I've done all my research. I know what I want. I know where I'm going to find it. And I'm at that point of intent where I'm now going to buy. And that's kind of where Google operates, and that's our lead generation kind of area. And there you're getting the low-hanging fruit. Now, all elements are possible, and I think digital has made all areas actually more accessible for the smaller business. But so I'm not saying you don't look at all of them, but if you've got a really limited budget, then go after the area of intent. That point where they're ready to buy, they know they're going to South Africa, they know they want to be in a certain place or a region, and they know what kind of holiday they want. That's intent. But if you have more budget, you need to go up that chain and build a relationship earlier. The earlier you build the relationship, the better you're going to grow. Is that a fair answer?
Yeah, I agree. What I would probably also jump on and sort of add to that is $1,000 you would probably have to test quite a bit to see where you would find real nuances. So it's not a lot of money to advertise with, so I agree with Brett in terms of the purchase funnel, like the consideration and intent is definitely there. So if you know which audiences are responding in the most beneficial way to you as a business, find smaller nuances in smaller niche markets and then scale eventually over time. So with $1,000, it's essentially a budget that will allow you to benchmark certain KPIs or CPIs or cost per acquisition, for example. Completely. In terms of intent, it's a great analogy to say fish where the fish are and make sure that you're a good fisherman.
I guess I'll play devil's advocate. I'm ex-Google, so everything that said I would have said about a year ago.
Don't you just want to reiterate?
But to pick up a social meme next minute.
I sat on the fence with this, and I completely agree with both Brett and Billy. I think it depends on what your goals are, and it also depends on the budget that you have. Where I slightly err is social media is free. It's really free for you to use, and you should think about ways that you can actually utilize that freedom. What we do as an advertising ecosystem of different companies is we help sure that we widen that audience. So if I had that $1,000 and I'm a really small business, I'm just starting up, and I've got a B&B breakfast house, the first thing I would do is use that $1,000 and come up with various ways of engaging. Maybe you take some bloggers and you actually get them to stay in the hotel and blog about it. Or maybe invite them for a breakfast and just show them the grounds. I think something like that shows a deeper connection, and that's what we're trying to get to. But ultimately, as you grow up, as you grow and succeed, you're going to have to sort of keep marketing that effort and initiative, and that's where our businesses really come in. So it really depends on which level you are, whether you're at awareness or consideration. If you know that you need to have your nights booked right away, because that's the nights that you have left on the table, you better go for one of us guys and actually use that to actually get those purchases in. But if you're not looking at that scale, then move at the top of the funnel and look for awareness and build out that branding.
I'm so gutted. That's pretty much what I was going to say. I was going to say, even if you just hire someone to, I don't know how else to talk this nowadays, of course, but if you just get really, really nice content that you put on all these platforms that people are engaging with, I think marketing and advertising any CPA model is a great opportunity, but that really is, you need to be very, very targeted, and when you're talking to companies the size of all of us in various levels, that wouldn't probably be the best spend on advertising as such. It really would be spending that time and effort and making sure that you have right content. And another thing that I think sometimes doesn't come up in these conferences is get someone in. If you meet someone, I keep on saying James from Madikwe because he was fantastic. Someone with that ability, pay them to come to your business and just talk to the different people in your business, because those people are the ones that make that experience for the people who come and visit your product. If they get that enthusiasm from someone else, if they don't yet have it, just remind them, get them to smile, get them to be excited and engaging with the travelers. That's where I would say your money's best spent.
No, I would totally agree. It's I'm not saying anything different here, but really kind of curating the content, because maybe not necessarily your company, but the destination where you operate, somebody is already putting content out there. So curate that content, find somebody that kind of help curate that content, show that off. Great example, while I've been here already, is had a great lunch and wine tasting at Spire Wine Farm yesterday, and they already shared the photo on their social media channels, and I think that took a few seconds.
Great. So my second question is, now you talked about how different you all are possibly in your approach, is how well you work well together, and so the whole area of convergence, and how these different platforms can be used effectively together, particularly for someone in the tourism space when it comes to their marketing. What's the best example you think of how you work together in terms of converging the platforms and cooperating with each other that you've seen?
You take that one first.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I think the best example, if I could even to pick it off, is the very strong relationship between YouTube and Facebook in terms of serving video. It is a single example, but I'm sure you know many more.
So for me, all of us, we're a media platform. We all own media platforms, which essentially is an audience that has an interest in what we have to offer. If you look at all of us, we're all coming with some angle of social, and I really do think there's a lot of commonality. So again, social is a group of people with very similar ideas or concepts. You get together and you share ideas. And if you look at each of those audiences, I guarantee we pretty much share very similar audiences. So if you're after a particular audience, you're most likely going to find them somewhere amongst this media offering in front of you. But I think, so we share the audience, definitely. There's a lot of sharing of technology, like the YouTube, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. There's a lot of crossover on sharing of technology because, again, it's the same audience that's saying, in this particular circumstance, I think I'd like to share it with this community. Is it on Twitter? Is it on Facebook? Should I share a recommendation with a video on TripAdvisor? So I think that's really interesting for me because it's how do we then differentiate as media owners to each of these users? And then our other users are the advertisers. How do we make sure that we make the most money for you? And I guess it's all around, at that point of time, again, context, how can we bring the right person to you at the right time for the right price and all that kind of stuff. But really, if you're going to do any form of engagement with the audience, you don't know where they're going to go to and when they're going to engage with you or how they're going to engage with you until you start creating platforms and engaging with each other. These kind of media platforms. I hope that comes up. Next.
Sure. So I think this is, I think we should show this back and basically say that it's the users that are effectively navigating how we should all be working together in the way that Twitter never used to have photos. Now we share Instagram photos. Twitter has gone into bed with YouTube in terms of sharing that information. So I think it's the users that have the power, and it's about you guys actually helping us to grow, because we all are, sat in our ecosystems wondering about how our platform's going to connect. But there's going to be this whole revolution around big data, and it's you guys that are actually making that change and funneling that big data relationship. So I think it's actually up to the user to get all of us together and show momentum.
Yeah, so it's a great question because at the end of it, like, great competition inspires great innovation. And I think we're all very privileged to work in tech companies that evolve so quickly around people and the people that, or the products that people use. So, I mean, at the end of it, Google's motto is ordering the world's information. Facebook's main vision and mission in life is creating an open and connected world. So at the base of it, we all pretty much align to making people's lives simple and like developing technology that has application to people's everyday lives. So we all learn from each other. I mean, Dublin, for example, has all the tech companies in one space. So we all get together, we all have commonalities, and really at the heart of it, it's a passion that we all share.
And I think, obviously, slightly different from this end, because we work purely in a sort of, in travel space. But we have from the beginning, since we started, been offering constantly opportunities for any advertiser to push traffic to anywhere, whether it's going to Twitter, it's going to their Facebook, or it's going to Expedia, or it's going to Booking.com. So I think there's a huge cooperation between all of us, and like everyone's saying, the content that you're putting up anywhere kind of ends up with most of us in some stage. So it all comes back to the content, and I don't think I could pick one specific, but now that it took a little while, but now with YouTube, for example, we actually streaming those videos to any sort of custom products we build. There's a whole sort of, because there isn't competition as such. We all do our own thing, but we're all in the same space. It's very well run. Not very much.
And I mean, it's for us. They're all. I mean, all of the social channels have been all very interconnected, and we have, and so it's like we have certain bloggers, and their audience is more geared toward a YouTube audience. So we have certain bloggers that are only doing very highly YouTube, Google Plus kind of content. And we have, of course, we're doing a lot of stuff with Twitter chat, but I'm finding this, especially with the blog content and then seeing that same type of content being pushed out on social channels, that each channel kind of has its own purpose and is reaching a different audience.
And a fantastic example right there in front of my eyes of somebody who was just the South African supplier of selfie sticks. Just putting a link to where you can buy this selfie stick already in South Africa coming across there. Okay, so I'd like to turn the mic over to the audience now. So we'll take questions directly from the speakers. If you want to show of hands, I can start selecting some questions. None, really? Oh, okay.
Can I get a sports question?
Can you get it?
Sports question.
A sports question, sure. Okay. This side is one there and one here. Yeah.
Brett, it's for you. Out of the majority of our clients, the one review site that they struggle to wrap their head around the most is Google+. And I know that you all, obviously, with Google Hotel Finder, there's going to be huge moves and big waves and a huge opportunity for those hotels who understand how to best leverage it. Is there like a short, quick answer that you could, let hotels here understand how to better use Google Plus for their property?
Bizarrely enough, I looked after Google Plus for the last 3 years, so I do know it very well. And it's a product that we really threw together very quickly to try and compete against Facebook. Can't help it. And so initially how we went about it, it's to try and bring a single view of the consumer or the logged on user into the Google ecosystem. And it's gone really far, and it's really great, and we focused a lot around photos, and we started pulling in this ecosystem together, and we're starting to see products like Google My Business, which essentially is taking places, it's taking a Google Plus page, it's trying to pull that all together and provide the necessary stats to be able to run it. However, there are still some limitations to the product when it comes to anybody with a multiple, retail presence with multiple businesses on the ground, and then trying to manage it from a group level, especially around reviews. Because you'll have a lot of single owners or single managers trying to manage it on an individual basis if you won't have this consistency from the top. We are looking at working something through there, but it's such a core fundamental change to the system to not just look at it as a single signed-on consumer, but look at it as an entity. Because each thing is designed to look like a single user, like a consumer. So yes, I agree with you, it is a problem, but it is a problem we're looking at addressing. Yeah, we can go have a conversation afterwards. There are ways and means to help you try and manage it better. A group around My Business. There's even an app, the My Business app, that consolidates a lot of these streams to provide better management. And I think it's going to be driven from there. So go check out Google My Business app.
Awesome, thank you.
Other questions, John?
Hi, Cash here. I wanted to ask all of you guys, what are you doing to curate that's the watchword that's been popping up the whole day today. Is what are you doing to curate content better and give travelers the information they need? Because there's a lot of content you have on your individual platforms. So what are you doing at the moment?
Sorry, can I have a sports question?
Thanks, man. I was actually waiting for the question. Yeah. So, in terms of Facebook's public content is obviously a really important thing. It forms part of the ecosystem. So, from not just a travel perspective, but from a brand perspective as well, or from a blogger perspective, public content is a massive, massive part of the ecosystem. In terms of finding relevancy, so having that content being published to specific people's newsfeed, it's based on relevancy and authenticity of that content. So, for example, if I had nothing to do with Mini Cooper SA, for example, I would hardly ever see any of the content because it's not relevant to me. So the more you behave, or the more you have almost siloed, so if you silo yourself in terms of a specific sort of conversation piece or behavior piece on Facebook, the algorithm matches that essentially and then places content within the feed itself. And at the end of the day, from a person's perspective, or the people that use Facebook, we've got to make sure that it's a good mix between personal content that's really important to you, like marriages or engagements or family birthings and things like that. And then there's also got to be the branded side of the aspect or ecosystem that we work in. So it's a really good question, and it's a constantly evolving thing. I'm not sure if that answers your question 100% correctly, or if that's something that kind of like lifts light or lifts the blanket of.
What I find fascinating is the information bubble. So because we've got all these recommendation engines trying to help users discover content, and I mean, it is a theory, but if you are always focused around your world and say you're really interested in travel, and all the platforms that you're on start picking up that's your interest and start feeding you travel content, that you start creating essentially an information bubble, where there might be World War III out there, but because your feeds are only feeding you travel information, that's all you'll ever know.
Yeah, it's like going to a local pub. Eventually, the bartenders get to know your name if you go there enough. So it's the same thing. It's a matching system, essentially. Yeah.
Well, in TripAdvisor, all content is public, so anyone who posts anything on TripAdvisor, whether it's a review or an article or response in forums, it's visible for everyone. So that's how we've always operated. So that's and also serving specific content, only advertising content will ever be served specifically. So we obviously have a lot of ways of commercially how we help companies to target people who are researching specific stuff. Everything's geo-coded. And again, I know Cape Town, we've spoken many times about this. I have to say, if you see any content that isn't actually specific to your product, but it comes geo-tagged to your area or tagged to your own product, please get in touch with Chad or me, because there's 90 pieces of content coming in. So we just wanted to be as specific as possible, so and it's all public, so slightly different.
One thing that we're something that I wanted to cover in my presentation, that because they like being online, they want to show off. So that's one thing that we're working on doing more, is kind of prominently putting that content side by side, because it's just important.
I guess Twitter's the kind of baby in the platform family. So we've taken a slightly different route. Well, one, we're a very open platform, so anybody can follow anyone. You can follow various hashtags. What we've done, especially I guess in Asia, is we have to actually go out and evangelize what Twitter is about, what why we should connect with not just Twitter, but the entire ecosystem, including Google, including Facebook. Because actually we're all sharing the same content. And TripAdvisor, it's all about sharing that content, then looking for the hotel where you want to go and stay with that Expedia. So what we've done is we've gone in and sort of curated content by speaking to local bloggers, speaking to local businesses, educating them on why you need to get into mobile. So if you think about Asia, Asia's kind of gone, wow, okay, so the Western world had, WAP, and they had desktop, they had WAP, then they had 3G, then they had the HTTP, then et cetera, then they got into apps. Asia just completely leapfrogged, had nothing, didn't even have infrastructure, and all of a sudden we're on 3G connection, and everybody's got a feature phone or a smartphone. And these feature phones and smartphones are in many cases in India, Philippines, even in the rest of Southeast Asia, it's their first device. So you can imagine if it's your first device, you may not even have a Gmail account. You obviously know Facebook because that's actually penetrating the region. And you're trying to figure out, well, how do we connect? So we actually go to the local marketeers, go to the local bloggers, and actually get them engaged about sharing their content and showing them how you can do this easily.
Good. I think one last question.
Hi, it's Anne from Big Impact in Swaziland. It's more of a challenge and a security huge issue with this at the moment, with Southern Africa, is you go out to a game park, you take a rhino, you put it on the social network, and the world knows where that rhino is. And it's a challenge for the security of the rhino. So what are the platforms doing? Or are you even thinking about awareness? Because a lot of people aren't aware that if they take that photo, chuck it up on social media while on the game zone, there could be a poacher, a trader, innocent different. You never know. So, a challenge to you guys. What can you do to help us with the rhino?
I don't mind taking a stab at this. So, in every kind of new technology, it exposes the bad side of humanity. And you see it in a number of different circumstances. I totally understand the rhino. So I'm going to take it a bit further away than just media. And maybe let's look at how we can flip it on its head a bit and say, and I'm thinking off the cuff here, why don't we take the information and maybe if we can start identifying that these are rhinos, so there's technology out there to say, I understand that this is a rhino, and we can start taking the location information about that. And all this information is probably publicly available on what you call an API, an opening to all these social systems. And write a platform that empowers the rhino. And I'm just thinking, at the moment we're all thinking about audiences and our businesses, but surely we can write an application as maybe a South African industry that enables the protectors of the rhinos, whether it's game rangers, whether it's other tourists, to know exactly where it is, not just for the poachers, but allow them to be there, to have a custom guard, to kind of flip it on its head, to give the authorities a head start on the poachers. So I know it's not an ideal solution, but that's what you can do with technology. The problem is you're always going to have people abusing it, and there's, when new technology comes in, there's two kind of ways that straightens itself out, and that's either through governments building new regulations around how we can act, like Poppy and all those kind of things. Or you get the big media players who will also develop our, technologies and policies in the direction that will stop if there was a terrorist threat, for instance. So, is Rhino a focus for a big American media company? I don't think so. But I think the APIs are there to allow South African businesses to help the Rhino and to help the authorities around Rhino protection to be forewarned and do a better job against the poachers. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so just, sorry to interject, it's a great question. So it's a double-edged sword with regards to social media, because we have to be able to allow people to share their experiences, but at the same time, those experiences or those check-ins could lead to a less than, happy sort of end result. It's quite interesting. We went to South Africa about 3 months ago, and there's a young chap. I forgot what his name is, but he's a 16-year-old guy, and his passion,
Kruger's used to be Kruger, latest items.
yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually spoke at our conference, and he just
Ilan, that's it.
So he discussed this exact issue, and he's a smart young man, and he used Facebook's API to do exactly what you just mentioned. The application allows people to obviously upload they are or any game reserve, for instance, but at the same time, the amplification of a rhino sighting, for example, gives the rangers within the park the idea of where the rhino is. So I agree with Brett. There should be some CSI responsibility around it, but at the same time, it should also be, and some people should come to the solution to using tech industries and access to APIs to formulate solutions like that. So that's just one example of a young guy who's literally not out of a trick, trying to make a difference in terms of using his brain and accessibility to, for example, Facebook API and check-in and geolocations.
So from our point of view, again, it's a balancing act around awareness and what could actually happen on the bad side of things. We as a company also have an open API that you can just download from GitHub and actually use that to be able to censor certain types of information. The other part of the equation is educating some of the users. Perhaps you don't need to necessarily take that photo and upload it the minute that you've seen the rhino there. Perhaps we should be educating around, going back and doing it a couple of days later. Honestly, coming from Asia, this is completely novel to me. But it's certainly something that I'll bring up in our office to at least see what we can do, because we actually work with WWF, we work with quite a few different organizations, and we need to get better at it. Because, yes, it is a people's problem, but it's something that we need to do, especially if you're an open platform. You need to think about how you're actually helping the world, and this is something that we should think about.
Great. Okay, well, our time is up, unfortunately, but that was great. Thank you all very much for participating in our panel. Thank you for some really great questions. So we're going to have a coffee break now, which is served outside. If we can be back in right on the stroke of 4 for our last 2 speakers, and yet another bottle of champagne to give it away, so make sure you're back here at 4. So thank you very much.